Now let us speak about beginnings. Not the kind that arrive quietly on a calendar, but the kind that demand something from you. Because a new year does not come with instructions, guarantees, or automatic results. It arrives like time always does, neutral, silent, and fair. The question is never what the year will bring to you. The real question is what you will bring to the year. You see, most people wait. They wait for motivation, for confidence, for conditions to improve, for someone to give them permission to live at a higher standard. But progress has never been a reward for waiting. Progress has always been the result of decision. A clear decision, a firm decision, the kind of decision that says, from this moment forward, I expect more from myself than I do from circumstances. Transformation does not begin out there. It begins inside. It begins the moment you decide that the way you've been thinking, acting, and choosing will no longer be sufficient for the life you want to live. Because if you want better results, you must become a better thinker. If you want a better future, you must build better habits. And if you want the next chapter to be different, then the author must be different. Time will pass whether you grow or not. The days will move forward whether you are intentional or careless. And 1 year from now, you will arrive somewhere. The only question is whether that place was chosen by design or by default. The tragedy is not that people aim too high and miss. The tragedy is that they aim too low and hit. So let this be the moment you draw the line. Not tomorrow, not next month. Now, decide that this year will not be another repetition of the last. Decide that you will invest in your mind, discipline your actions, and raise your personal standards. Because the future you want is not waiting for luck. It is waiting for leadership. And that leadership begins with you. Starting now, a new year is often treated like a magical reset button, as if the turning of a calendar page has the power to erase old habits, correct poor decisions, and automatically produce better results. But time has never carried that kind of authority. Time is neutral. It does not favor ambition or punish laziness. It simply passes day after day, offering the same 24 hours to everyone, regardless of their intentions. The difference between those who grow and those who stagnate is not the arrival of a new year, but the acceptance of responsibility that comes with it. An opportunity is not a guarantee. An opportunity is an invitation, and invitations require a response. A new year presents expanded possibility, but possibility alone does nothing. Fields of opportunity remain barren without cultivation. The truth most people avoid is that nothing changes simply because the year changes. Circumstances may shift slightly, trends may come and go, but personal results remain tied to personal choices. If thinking stays the same, outcomes stay the same. If discipline remains weak, progress remains slow. The calendar cannot compensate for a lack of direction. Responsibility is the foundation of transformation because it returns power to its rightful owner. When a person accepts full responsibility for their results, they stop negotiating with excuses. They stop blaming the economy, their past, their environment, or other people. They begin to understand a powerful principle: life responds to the individual, not the other way around. The moment someone says, "This year I will take ownership of my decisions, my habits, and my standards," they step out of hope and into control. Most people want change without change. They want improved outcomes without improved behavior. They want growth without discomfort. But opportunity demands payment, and the currency is effort, discipline, and consistency. A new year does not ask whether you feel ready. It asks whether you are willing to act. Responsibility means doing what needs to be done, even when motivation is absent, even when progress is slow, even when no one is watching. It means understanding that success is not something pursued occasionally, but something practiced daily. There is a quiet dignity in responsibility. It replaces complaint with commitment. It replaces wishing with planning. When you accept responsibility, you stop waiting for permission to improve your life. You recognize that personal development is not an event, but a process, and that process begins with how you think, what you tolerate, and what you repeatedly do. The new year becomes powerful only when it is paired with new disciplines, higher standards, and a refusal to drift. Opportunity is generous, but it is also demanding. It demands that you read when you would rather scroll, that you practice when you would rather rest, that you invest in skills when entertainment would be easier. Responsibility is the willingness to pay today for a better tomorrow. It is the understanding that small daily actions, repeated consistently, eventually create massive separation between those who grow and those who merely age. When a person truly understands this, the new year stops being a source of false hope and becomes a structured challenge. It becomes a personal agreement to grow wiser, stronger, and more capable than before. Not because circumstances improved, but because standards were raised, decisions were sharpened, and effort was no longer optional, but expected as a way of life in the moment. Responsibility is embrace the year ahead, stops everything that happens to you, and starts becoming something you deliberately build day by day through choices that align with who you are becoming and the life you'll determine to live. Most people believe their lives will change when their circumstances change. They wait for more money, better connections, clearer direction, or fewer problems before they commit to growth. This belief quietly keeps them stuck because circumstances rarely improve before a decision is made. In reality, circumstances respond to decision, not the other way around. Transformation begins at the exact moment a person decides to think differently, act differently, and demand more from themselves regardless of what surrounds them. A decision is not a wish. It is not a preference or a hope. A decision is a line drawn in the mind that says, this is who I am now, and this is what I will no longer accept. Without that line, effort becomes inconsistent and discipline becomes optional. People start strong, then fade when discomfort appears because they never truly decided. They merely experimented. True transformation requires a firm internal commitment that does not depend on motivation, approval, or ideal conditions. Circumstances are powerful persuaders, but they are poor leaders. If you allow your environment to dictate your behavior, then your future will always look like an extension of your past. The reason decision must come first is because it shifts authority inward. When you decide, you stop asking whether something feels easy and start asking whether it is necessary. You stop negotiating with your comfort zone and start acting in alignment with the future you want to create. Every meaningful change in life follows this pattern. First comes a decision, then comes struggle, then comes growth. People often mistake the struggle as a sign they made the wrong choice, when in fact it is proof that the decision was real. Transformation is uncomfortable because it requires shedding an old identity. You cannot build a new life while protecting old habits. The moment you decide to change, your routines will resist, your excuses will speak louder, and your doubts will attempt to regain control. This resistance is not an obstacle. It is confirmation that transformation is underway. Waiting for circumstances to improve is a subtle form of fear. It allows delay to feel reasonable and procrastination to feel justified. But the truth is, confidence does not arrive before action. Clarity does not arrive before movement. Strength does not arrive before effort. These qualities are built through decision. Back behavior repeated over time. When you decide first, you create momentum, and momentum begins to reshape circumstances in your favor. Decision also simplifies life. It removes internal conflict. When you are undecided, every choice feels heavy. When you decide, many choices disappear. You no longer ask whether you should show up, work on yourself, or stay disciplined. Those questions were answered the moment the decision was made. This mental clarity frees energy and focus, allowing consistent progress instead of constant hesitation. History is filled with people who changed their lives not because conditions were perfect, but because continuing as they were became unacceptable. They decided that the cost of staying the same was greater than the cost of change. That realization marks the true beginning of transformation. From that point forward, circumstances become something to navigate, not something to wait on. When a person decides with seriousness, the world begins to respond differently. Opportunities become visible, solutions become clearer, and resilience increases. Not because life suddenly becomes easy, but because the individual has taken control of their direction. Transformation does not start with a breakthrough. It starts with a decision that is honored daily through action, discipline, and persistence, even when results are slow and recognition is absent. And once that decision is made, the path forward may be difficult, but it will finally be deliberate and aligned with the future, being built step by step through intentional choices rather than temporary conditions. Many people quietly believe that if they simply give life enough time, things will somehow work out. They assume that experience alone produces wisdom, that years alone produce success, and that patience alone produces progress. But time is not a teacher, and it is certainly not a transformer. Time is merely a container. What you place inside it determines what comes out. Left unmanaged, time does nothing more than pass, carrying with it the same habits, the same thinking, and the same results year after year. There are people who have lived many decades, yet learned very little, and there are others who have compressed remarkable growth into a short period of focused effort. The difference is not age or opportunity, but discipline. Discipline is the bridge between intention and result. It is the practice of doing what is necessary, even when it is inconvenient, uncomfortable, or unexciting. Without discipline, goals remain attractive ideas. With discipline, they become inevitable outcomes. Time will reward only what is practiced consistently. It does not reward ambition, enthusiasm, or occasional effort. A person may feel motivated today, inspired tomorrow, but motivation is unreliable. Discipline, on the other hand, is dependable. It operates whether you feel confident or doubtful, energized or tired. Discipline is what shows up when feelings fail. It is what turns ordinary days into building blocks for extraordinary outcomes. Many people confuse activity with progress. They stay busy, but they do not stay disciplined. They start many things, but finish very few. They assume that because they are occupied, they are advancing. But business without discipline is simply motion without direction. Time spent without structure often strengthens poor habits rather than productive ones. This is why years can pass without meaningful change if effort is not guided by intentional routines and standards. Discipline creates compound growth. Small actions, repeated daily, may seem insignificant in the moment, but they accumulate power over time. Reading a few pages each day, practicing a skill for a short period, maintaining personal standards in health, work, and mindset. These actions appear minor, yet they quietly separate those who progress from those who plateau. Time magnifies whatever discipline consistently applies. Without discipline, time can actually work against you. Bad habits compound just as effectively as good ones. Neglected responsibilities grow heavier. Avoided decisions become more complex. Comfort becomes dependency. Discipline interrupts this drift. It forces conscious choice where convenience would otherwise dominate. It replaces short-term relief with long-term reward. Discipline is also a form of self-respect. It is the ability to make a promise to yourself and keep it. Each time discipline is exercised, confidence grows, not because results are immediate, but because integrity is strengthened. A disciplined person trusts themselves. That trust becomes the foundation for higher standards and greater responsibility. The future is not shaped by dramatic moments, but by daily behavior. What you repeatedly do, you eventually become. Time cannot substitute for this truth. It cannot correct inconsistency, compensate for neglect, or reward excuses. Only disciplined action, applied steadily, gives time something valuable to work with. When discipline is present, time becomes an ally. It begins to work in your favor, multiplying effort and refining skill. Progress may still be slow, but it is steady. Results may not be immediate, but they are predictable. Over time, discipline transforms potential into performance and intention into reality. And as days turn into weeks and weeks into years, the disciplined actions that once felt demanding become habits, and those habits quietly build a life that reflects the deliberate effort rather than accidental outcomes. Focus their energy on outcomes while giving little attention to items, while giving little attention to identity. They want more income, better health, stronger relationships, and greater confidence, yet they attempt to achieve these results without becoming the kind of person who naturally produces them. This creates frustration because results are not independent events. They are reflections. They reflect habits, values, standards, and self-image. Until identity evolves, results remain temporary or inconsistent. Identity answers a quiet but powerful question: who am I being on a daily basis? This internal self concept governs behavior far more than external goals ever will. A person who sees themselves as disciplined behaves differently than someone who merely wants discipline. A person who identifies as a learner naturally seeks growth, while someone who only desires success searches for shortcuts. What you believe about yourself silently directs your actions, choices, and tolerances. This is why lasting change feels difficult. You are not just changing behaviors. You are challenging an internal narrative that has been reinforced for years. When someone tries to act beyond their identity, resistance appears. Old habits pull them back. doubt becomes loud. Inconsistency creeps in. This is not failure. It is misalignment. Behavior that conflicts with identity requires constant effort, while behavior that aligns with identity feels natural and sustainable. True transformation begins when you shift the way you see yourself. When standards rise internally, external actions follow more easily. Instead of asking what you should do, you begin asking who you must become. This shift changes everything. A person who decides they are someone who keeps commitments no longer debates whether to show up. A person who identifies as responsible no longer negotiates with excuses. Identity simplifies behavior. Results chase identity, not the other way around. You do not become confident because you succeed. You succeed more often because you operate from confidence. You do not become disciplined after achieving results. You achieve results because discipline has become part of who you are. When identity leads, results follow with greater consistency and less resistance. Many people try to borrow motivation from external sources, but identity is internal fuel. It does not depend on praise or pressure. It is self-sustaining. When you act in alignment with who you believe you are, effort feels purposeful rather than forced. Progress feels personal rather than temporary. Identity is built through repeated action and reinforced through reflection. Each disciplined choice casts a vote for the person you are becoming. Each time you honor a standard, you strengthen that identity. This is why small wins matter. They are not just steps toward a goal, they are confirmations of character. Over time, these confirmations reshape self-belief. If results have been inconsistent, the solution is not more intensity, but more alignment. You must upgrade the internal standard before expecting external improvement. Identity sets the ceiling for results. When that ceiling rises, outcomes naturally expand to meet it. A person who understands this stops chasing quick fixes and starts building character. They invest in thinking, learning, and self-mastery, knowing that who they become will determine what they attract and sustain. When identity is clear and deliberate, results no longer feel accidental or fragile, but become natural extensions of the person you are choosing to be each day through disciplined thought, intentional action, and unwavering standards that shape a life from the inside out rather than chasing surface-level achievements that never truly last understood. If you are ready, I can proceed with key point no. 5 following the same structure, tone, and constraints, or refine any of the previous explanations to further elevate philosophical depth, cadence, or emotional impact. There comes a moment in every life when intention must either harden into commitment or quietly dissolve into regret. Intention is easy to carry. It requires no sacrifice, no consistency, and no courage. Commitment, on the other hand, demands action, accountability, and endurance. The dividing line between the two is not dramatic, but it is decisive. It is the moment when a person stops talking about what they want and starts organizing their life around what they have chosen. Today always presents a choice. You can treat it as a rehearsal, or you can treat it as a turning point. Many people live as if their real life will begin later, once conditions improve or confidence increases. This mindset postpones progress indefinitely. Commitment does not wait for certainty. It creates certainty through action. When you commit, you move forward despite incomplete information, trusting that clarity will come as a result of engagement rather than delay. The difference between intention and commitment is visible in behavior. Intention says, I will try. Commitment says, I will do whatever is required. Intention allows flexibility when discomfort appears. Commitment removes the option to quit when emotions fluctuate. Once commitment is made, excuses lose their authority. The question shifts from whether you feel capable to whether you are willing to persist. A defining moment does not always arrive with noise or recognition. Often it is quiet and private. It is the decision to show up when no one is watching, to stay disciplined when progress is slow, to continue when the initial excitement fades. These moments are not celebrated publicly, but they shape character profoundly. They mark the transition from dreaming to building. Today matters because it is the only time action can occur. You cannot act yesterday, and you cannot act tomorrow. You can only act now. Waiting for a better moment is a subtle way of avoiding responsibility. Commitment recognizes that imperfect action today is more powerful than perfect intention postponed indefinitely. Each day becomes a vote either for growth or for stagnation. When a person commits fully, their standards change. They stop negotiating with mediocrity. They stop allowing small compromises to erode their progress. Commitment introduces structure where chaos once lived. It replaces reaction with intention and replaces hope with execution. Life begins to feel more deliberate because decisions are no longer casual. The dividing line between intention and commitment is crossed when a person accepts that discomfort is not a signal to stop, but a signal to strengthen. Growth always extracts a price, and commitment is the agreement to pay it willingly. This agreement builds resilience, and resilience builds momentum. Over time, what once felt difficult becomes normal, and what once felt impossible becomes expected. People who commit understand that results are not owed to them. They are earned through consistency. They do not rely on mood or motivation. They rely on principles and routines. This reliability creates trust both internally and externally. A committed person becomes dependable, and dependability attracts opportunity. The future does not respond to good intentions. It responds to disciplined commitment applied daily. When you choose commitment, you stop waiting for life to change and start changing your life through deliberate action. This is the moment where direction replaces drift, where purpose replaces hesitation, and where the ordinary day in front of you becomes the foundation of an extraordinary future built through decisions honored consistently starting now